Hello and welcome to We Meant to Review This Honest! Going to be covering a couple of albums that I meant to get round to last year, but as a consequence of life getting in the way, and one of those I only found out really late into the year, I just couldn't get round to them. Those two albums are going to be Black Anima by Lacuna Coil and Vision 2020 Vision by Die Krupps. So how I'm going to be going about this is I'm going to be giving overviews of the albums, then going into songs that stood out to me, whether good or bad, and then giving my overall score. So let's get straight into it with first Black Anima. This is Lacuna Coil's 9th studio album. Their last one was Delirium. And this takes a much heavier path. Any of the previous albums have, you go through the rest of their library, a lot of the songs on this album are much heavier, and that was intentional. They wanted to really experiment with the sounds that they use. They wanted to explore what styles and changes they could utilise to really put forth their messages of experience and growth and how life has changed them. So opening the album, you've got Anima Nera, and that really gives you a nice sort of easing in, but you get this feeling that there's something more going on. It's quite downplayed. There's use of keyboards and synths that gives you this idea that you're in store for something special. Following from that, you do have one of the songs that really stood out to me in Sword of Anger. Now that opens with a really nice defiant roar from Andrea Ferro. We are the and you've got this nice, deep, chunky guitar work going on. The drum beat really drives it forward. It has a lot of feel of Paradise Lost, and it's almost like if Paradise Lost and Lacuna Coil collaborated, and I hope that someone from either band sees this, because I would love if that sparked off the possibility of collaborations between you guys, because I would be all over that. But yeah, Sword of Anger is this message of casting off fear and doubt and saying no to everyone who tries to question your identity and your self-worth. And it outright gives this message of, I will own this anger and prove you wrong. And it kind of goes into the vein of, I keep proving you wrong. Immediately after that, you've got another track that really stood out to me, Reckless. Now that really gives an idea of letting loose and just living in the moment, because there's only so many moments that we'll have left. It's one of my favourites on the album, and part of that is because of how it extols the virtues of letting loose and how your loved ones can make you feel like it's okay to just release and engage with the moment. I really like that sort of message. It's something that I've always contended with and found far easier when you're with your friends, your loved ones, everything like that. So it's definitely something that grabs me on a personal, almost spiritual level. The other one on the good scale that really sticks out to me and is another favourite of mine is Save Me. Now that definitely has this good feel of sort of racing to someone's rescue and desperately pleading to be saved. It speaks to me on very personal levels where I've had instances of needing to go to friends, I need help. It's rather interesting to hear heavy music that's extolling the virtues of asking for help, outlining that you can be your own worst enemy and it's not a bad thing to just outright seek out that help. It's definitely one that the more you listen to it, the stronger it grows on you and the more you have that realisation of what the true message is. Now, a couple of tracks that... This is where we get into a weird dichotomy. They're great tracks, but they feel odd on this album. And I think I might know why, but we'll get on to that. So first off, there's Apocalypse. Now, overall, it's a great song. It's got this nice big sound to it. It's got a cool vocal effect going on. You've got the chanting and sort of sirenic singing is the best way I can describe it. But it doesn't feel right on this album. It feels more like it belongs on either Delirium or Broken Crown Halo. As I say, it's not a bad song by any measure. It just feels odd. Aside from that, there's The End Is All I Can See. Now, again, great song. That's actually one of my favourites on the album, if it were on a different album. And I know people are going to be questioning how that even makes any sense. Thematically, it fits. But sound-wise, it's got a really cool sound, and there's sort of sinister guitar work going on, and the synth play is really on point. But again, it feels like it belongs on a previous album. And just to close out, we have Black Anima, which really nicely bookends with Anima Nera. You continue that sort of sound and vocal effect and everything like that, but also incorporate what has been laid out with the rest of the album. It's got this nice gradual build, and at times it sounds kind of evil, but in a sort of you think we're like this, but we're not kind of way. And it's got this nice sort of chiming bell underlaying it all. It's just really good for ending the album, and it's a rare instance of you simultaneously want to hear more, but at the same time you want that to be where the album ends, because anything more and it would feel like a bit of a letdown. So, overall thoughts, I would probably rearrange some of the songs because Songs like Save Me feel like they flow better from Anima to Sword of Anger. It feels like if that was the in-between point, that would work a bit better. With that said, there is the vocal bridge, which kind of leads off of The End Is All I Can See. I think that overall, this is one of those albums that requires repeated listens to fully get the experience and understand the album properly. As it stands, it's at a 3.5 out of 5, but some songs are, like, the songs on their own are really great. It's just, as an album overall, I feel like I need to listen to it a few more times. However, with my personal misgivings said, you are a Lacuna Coil fan, then you're definitely going to enjoy the album. Next is Vision 2020 Vision by Die Krupps.
Vision 2020 Vision, Vision, Vision 2020 Vision, Vision.
Now, this is a great album for if you're into industrial but aren't familiar with the band and want to explore what they're like, and it's a great album for old fans. Massive disclaimer, this is a very politically charged album. Die Krupps is a very left-wing band. They don't like Donald Trump. Like, there are no two ways about this on this album. So if you find that your political leanings would affect your personal enjoyment of this album, then best steer clear of it. For everyone else, let's get straight into it. So, songs that stand out to me on this album, you've got Welcome to the Blackout, which is actually one of my favourites on the album. I've even got it as my alarm some days because that driving force, this overwhelming, it does actually have sort of an effect of alarms. It really gives this sort of riotous feeling and emphasises this effect of panic, and then sort of counteracts and juxtaposes that with moments of sudden calm and sort of creeping through the night, that sort of feel. And it really gives you sort of an idea of the message that they're going for from the album overall.
Welcome to the siege. Welcome to the breakdown. The cards within reach.
Trigger warning. I'm going to admit I don't quite understand the message of that song. I think that it's basically parodying how the left will be regarded as special snowflakes and everything like that. And it'll turn out to be those on the right who will decry the most inane of things like vegan sausage rolls and shit like that.
Your eyes and close your ears. We'll protect you from your fears.
With that said, I don't know. If I've gotten things completely off the mark, then Jürgen, please tell me. I'd love to do a follow-up video that clarifies what I've gotten right and what I've gotten wrong. But regardless of whether or not I understand it, I like the song.
Images too disturbing. Beware their show.
The next song, which really stood out to me, is The Carpet Crawlers. Now, some people might recognise that title, others will just be sort of like, okay, bit of an odd title. But what that is a cover, an early Genesis cover, and we're talking Peter Gabriel era. Now, what that really showed to me is how Die Krupps can really change up the sound and style.
Carpet crawlers hate their call.
it kept in theme with the rest of the album. It's still sort of talking about the political and societal ills of the world. That's what made it really stand out for me, is that it didn't feel out of kilter with the rest of the album. It just felt like it was bringing things down a bit, making it a bit more synth-focused. For all that said, it really shows the scope of Die Krupps' ability to really change things up, especially when it's needed to give you a bit of a rest.
The dicks roll in every tree. They're pulled up by the magnets.
The next song to really stand out to me is Allies, which is spelled with 3 L's. Now that's very classic German wordplay going on there. It's basically all lies and allies, referring to Donald Trump's close relationships with countries like North Korea and Russia, and his strange praising of how their premiers will conduct themselves. And it's generally going along with this sentiment of everyone is lying, and their allies in those lies.
Lies, lies, all lies. Lies, lies, allies. All I hear is lies, lies. All must follow. We're allies.
It mainly stood out to me because of that wordplay. I quite enjoy when wordplay goes on, and it really just it grabbed my attention. From there, the next song that really took my attention for various reasons is FU. And that does stand for what you'd think it stands. In fact, the very first 2 lines are
Fuck you.
and it repeats that quite a few times, with samples of Donald Trump saying fake news. And it is just completely tearing into him. It's saying that he's an absolute waste, he's a disaster, and really putting up sort of what he claims and what has been the ultimate result, and how he's been destructive and divisive to America. And it feels more like personal catharsis than anything else. I quite like that as a band they'll just do a song that's their own personal views, possibly reflected by other people, but ultimately what they think. I really enjoy it, but it is a bit of an awkward one to discuss because of how blunt force trauma it is. Finally, Human, as the last track, really does well for closing off the album and giving you a good idea for what their overall message is. It has this nice alternating style between a more downplayed effect and a much more ferocious, animalistic intent. Basically presenting us with this idea. It kind of feels like it would be a good companion piece to some of the songs that were presented in Cell Zero by Apocalyptica. Just this cool juxtaposition between the creative and destructive natures of humanity, and how, in this case, very much focusing on how if we continue down the path we're going, then all that will be faced is destruction, and the only way that we won't end up just completely extinct as a consequence of our own folly is to take a step back and figure out where it is that we're going wrong. But until the people right at the top who are making those problems are removed, nothing else can be done. I do want to emphasise that All of this is what I've inferred from listening to the album. They're not necessarily my personal, although I do align with Die Krupps on a lot of things. With that said, it's a great closer to the album. It gives a good, nice, solid ending to it and makes me excited for what they have in store next. Overall, I'd give Vision 2020 Vision a 4.5 out of 5. It's almost a 5 out of 5, but because of one song, Wolfen parentheses her pack, which I can't reasonably remember, which is weird because I noted it as feeling like a mashup of Die Krupps, Rammstein, and Frank Klepacki. I would have thought that would stick in my memory better. But because of that, I didn't feel it was fair to critique it. With that said, I encourage everyone to get it. You can get it on Bandcamp. I'll include a link in the description. I also encourage everyone to get Black Anima. That will be it for this episode. Next proper Once More With Feeling episode is going to be the Patreon reviews. That's going to be of the Proto Men's albums based off the Mega Man games. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, that's it for this episode. I'll catch you all next time.